So today what I wanted to go through is a conversation that I am having pretty much every single day with my patients, and this is surrounding degeneration, basically how it occurs, how it can be prevented, and why has it happened to them. Because what we know about degeneration is it is a preventable thing. What we have to understand about degeneration is that it is much more common as people are starting to get older. And so when we go into this medical model of talking about degeneration, it just becomes the norm that people that are getting older will have wear and tear and degeneration in their joints. But that being said, as chiropractors, we very commonly take x-rays, and as a result of taking x-rays on a very regular basis, we will often see the vast differences in people's level of degeneration in their joints. And so what we tend to see is that you can take 3 or 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 100 different 60-year-olds, and what we're essentially going to see is a completely different level of degeneration in their spines. And in fact, actually, I've seen degeneration in people's spines as early as the age of 21. And I've seen people well into their 60s that demonstrate absolutely no degeneration of their spine whatsoever. And so what we've got to ask ourselves is the question of why these people differ so much. Now, what we have to understand about a joint is the joint is designed to move and take load. However, very much like your car, certain parts of your car will wear out quicker than other parts. So just for an example, if we're driving our car in the UK, because obviously this is going to be different rules for different countries, it's typically the tires on the inside of the car that are going to wear first. So e.g. the ones on the driver's side, because when we turn around a roundabout, they create the most friction. And as a result, these are the ones that we start to see wear out earliest. Now, if we take the same example and we look at our joints, it's typically those joints that are being overloaded and overstrained that are going to be those ones that really start to wear out. And so as a result, those are typically the ones that we see degenerate. Now, the reality of it is if you're doing the right maintenance and you use the right strength in those areas, and we keep the right level of mobility and flexibility, then we can start to see that actually the effects of degeneration can actually start to be reversed, slowed, or eliminated completely. And so we can have an impact on these things. Now, people with degenerative type arthritis will actually say that they feel better the more they keep those joints mobile, supple, and actually moving. So if we can keep a joint moving for longer, then we're less likely to have as much degeneration. So a couple of other things that I have personally seen in spines in my time as a chiropractor is there are two very common places that we're going to see degeneration more than others. Two places at the base of the neck and in the base of the lumbar spine. And the reason we start to see these two areas the most, these seem to be two pivotal and hinging points. So we tend to see a lot of degeneration around C5, C6 in the neck, which, by the way, is very unideal because all of those nerves in the base of the neck are about to go down into our arm, and this can be one of those triggers for pins and needles and radicular pains, even stuff like headaches and neck pain and shoulder stiffness. And then the same again when we start to look down in the lower back, and again, degeneration down in these joints is really going to affect the nerves that are going to go down into the legs. It can also give you that sciatica type feeling, it can give you that lower back stiffness, that inability to feel flexible in the morning if we have degeneration in those joints in the lumbar spine. But the reason why we start to see changes in these two areas is, like I say, they seem to be very large hinge points. So just for an example, the majority of us spend a lot more time using stuff like mobile phones, sitting at desks, tablets, computers, etc. And as a result, what happens is our head starts to cradle forward, and the more that head starts to cradle forward, the more inches the head comes forward, the bigger the leverage, the bigger the lever it is on the base of your neck. And this is why we start to see those degenerative changes. Now, same again with the head. If we start to hinge forward and hunch over, we have the same issues, exactly the same with the lower back. And so even though the joints in the lower back are stronger, the weight of our upper body being in awkward positions starts to create these excessive loads on these joints, and as a result, that's when we start to see the wear and tear take place. So this is why your chiropractor will really nag you surrounding posture, keeping mobility, and keeping the right level of strength and balance in all of your joints. And obviously the best way that we know as chiropractors to do that is through the spinal adjustment, keeping those joints absolutely mobile. And by keeping the joints mobile, it keeps those nerves working effectively so that the muscles can stay strong and you can keep yourself moving and loaded in a positive way. It's also a very effective way of helping people to control their posture so that they can actually stay upright and actually keep the joints loaded in the ways that they were designed to be, rather than in these awkward and difficult positions. So if you have any questions about why your joints may be degenerating, and again, look, if we can go and use the same principle across pretty much any joint in the body. So I've just used the examples of the neck and the lower back, but it's very common for people to get hip degeneration and have hip replacements one side versus the other. And actually, if we look at the statistics on hip degeneration and hip replacements, most hip replacements, and I think it's about 80% of hip replacements are actually made on the side of the long leg, which basically means that that's the leg that you're supporting the majority of your weight through. And as a result, if you're putting too much weight through a joint for a prolonged period of time, e.g. if you've been doing that for several years versus not putting any load on the other one, you can inherently work out exactly why one joint is going to take more stress than the other. And like I say, there will be a multitude of reasons. It can be our lifestyle, it could be our work, it could be our previous injuries. We could have loads and loads of stuff that could actually trigger these kinds of changes. And so as a result, if you want to learn a little bit more, nice to see you, Andy. Pleasure to see you. Thank you for that. We're doing our best. We're doing our absolute best. So if you wanted to actually change these loads, then maybe you can obviously discuss these things. We're happy to discuss these things with you. We're also happy in the future to obviously give people the right feedback on how that they can actually benefit these joint loads, and obviously over time teach people the right exercises so they can actually correct these loads and actually start to distribute evenly so they can function at a higher level and actually live quality years rather than necessarily always just quantity. That's all from me for today, guys. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can jump over to our YouTube channel, which is Complete Health Eastbourne. Equally, we also run a podcast at the moment, which is on iTunes and Spotify. This is called Coffee with the Chiropractor. We roughly have about 15 episodes available at the moment. Obviously, you can find tons more videos on our Facebook wall. And so if you just want to learn a little bit more, we're trying to get as much information out to you guys, especially during this difficult time. Bye for now.